Hello, my name is Nikki Giacara, and I am an IFBB Wellness Pro. I'm also a personal trainer, nutrition coach, psychic medium, posing coach. I kind of do it all.
Nice. So obviously, the one that stands out there, psychic medium, and I really want to talk about that because it's very interesting to me. I want to get onto the fitness stuff a little bit here in a minute, but tell us about that because I don't even know like where to start when it comes to that.
It's crazy. That's kind of like how I felt before I kind of like jumped into this journey like head on. And everybody's intuitive, and that's the thing. Everybody thinks like, oh my God, you have this gift. Well, we all have a gift of intuition. It's whether we choose to listen to it or not that really determines the ultimate strength of it. And if we were to spend more time in stillness and in meditation and I use bodybuilding as that meditative state for me. If we all spent some time in that capacity, we would get better and stronger with our intuition. We'd get better like as humans, as a collective. So it's really cool. I've always been intuitive since as young as I can remember. And then I remember not necessarily having like imaginary friends, but I would imagine like I would remember having these memories with people and situations that like I didn't know if really existed. And I'm like, this is so bizarre. And I'm like, I was an only child growing up. And it was just one of those things that I have this memory bank of situations and interactions and people and memories that I don't remember physically living out. And, that kind of started posing some questions as I got older and, so on and so forth. And, research after research, psychic after psychic that just kind of popped up in my life. It was just one of those things that, the more questions you ask, the more information you get. And, from there streams a whole other level of questions. And it's just like a never ending journey, but it's super cool.
So you kind of said like you can remember as far back as you can remember, like having and experiencing this, but what do you specifically remember kind of like at what moment you kind of thought maybe this is something that is like different from what other people may be experiencing like on a more, I guess, like
Totally.
intense level?
Totally. And it really wasn't until I started asking questions to like my friends and things like that in school, or even to like my parents and stuff like that. I would just ask them like, do you see what I'm seeing? And they would be like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then that would be like, so is my perception weird? Is my perception wrong? But it wasn't wrong because a lot of the times with certain situations, like I would either predict them before they happened or I would journal about it before they took place. And they were like very specific details that wouldn't make sense unless you were actually there. And if it weren't for like my journals and things like that, I don't think I would honestly believe myself because, you second guess yourself. Again, with fitness, you second guess yourself. Am I going to be ready? Am I lean enough? Whatever. And, so yeah, it was definitely weird, but I definitely felt I knew that I was different in the sense of seeing things differently and perceiving situations differently, but I didn't know how to explain it or even relate to somebody else around me. So I just kept quiet about it. And it wasn't until my early 20s where I was like, this is not common. We're going to find out what's going on.
Yeah. And for you, like, was there any fear related to that? Like any like what's kind of going on here, especially kind of in the beginning, was there like any spookiness to it?
Definitely. It's weird in the beginning when you're and again, just to give like a recap of like, there's different kinds of mediumship. Like you can be a claircognizant medium, you can be a clairvoyant. They call it the clairs, and there's like 6 or 7 different clairs that are the type of psychic one usually is. So some people can taste, things, they can smell things, they can see things. I happen to be the claircognizant type, which is that you just know. It's all the word translates to all knowing, and I'm a Leo, so like again, we're known for being loud, we're known for being personality, bold, sometimes loudmouths. There's certain ones that are very obnoxious, and I get that. I'm sorry on behalf of us, but I always just thought it was something related to that. So I never wanted to be like a know-it-all. I never wanted to like raise my hand in class because I knew the answer without ever even cracking the book open. Just stuff that was just I shouldn't have known, but I knew. So I think I learned to quiet it during those early years because what else are you gonna do? Like, oh, here's ADHD medicine, and that's what they do. They try to medicate kids all the time that are different, that are gifted, that are intuitive, and it's not because they actually have an ADHD problem. It's because they are getting downloads of information that they can't explain, and they have all this stuff in their head and things that they say that are so random that they're not actually ADHD. They're really intuitive.
And do you feel like you kind of mentioned like all this information, but now especially with social media, with the internet, you can really have in there the access to information and more information is this kind of like in a weird way like being created. Does it almost feel like that there's ever like an overload to you or to like, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. Almost like the pipes are kind of getting filled
Yeah,
up so fast.
that's a great question. Yeah, it's weird, and obviously things are very related to the planets. We just got out of Mercury in retrograde. And basically when Mercury's in retrograde, things are always chaotic from a communication standpoint. Um, Unresolved issues will always come up that weren't resolved in a previous retrograde, things like that. So, there's different times of the year or different times of the month even where my energy is needed at work with like my clients specifically is what I'm referencing, or my friends are all going through it and they're all going through the same issue or variations of that same issue. So it'll be a 2 or 3 week period where that'll happen. And then like I will find myself needing to sleep for like 10 hours straight for like 4 to 5 nights in a row. And that's just the recharge. On the flip side, however, I spend a really great deal of time and energy in my recovery game. Like I do acupuncture every 2 weeks. I see a massage therapist every 2 weeks. I don't do red light as much as I should, but I do. Things like that. Because if you're not doing the stuff to stay grounded and to receive that kind of information, 100% you will not be well. And I like to use the example of people like, like you ever see like the crazy homeless, like on the side of the road that are like schizo. That is the result of like never quieting and never being still. And, most of the times those people that are going through that, they're highly intuitive. You see a lot of them sitting on the ground. When they're sitting on the ground, like that's a root chakra. They're trying to be grounded. And they didn't know how to deal with that gift essentially, and it manifests into other things. So yes, you have to take time to ground and really step that part of your game up. Yes, it does get overwhelming, but it's weird. And in the same breath, it's also very recharging. Like when my clients come to me and need something or ask me for advice that has nothing to do with fitness but has everything to do with fitness, and I can provide that information for them, that's fulfilling. That's where that energy charge comes back. So there's good days and there's bad days, but they're all part of the bigger picture.
And do you feel like that it's a very physical? Is it very, what is it kind of root from? Is it physical? Is it like electromagnetic? Do you feel like it's spiritual? Like, where do you feel like it almost comes from? Like it from your own human,
Totally.
being the receiver of it?
It's an energy thing. It's a feeling. Like it's like an actual vibration. Like I can feel the minute I open my eyes in the first minutes of the morning. I'm like, that's going to be the day. Okay, we're doing this. Like it means extra caffeine for that particular day. Great. If it means, if I can get rid of every excess appointment that I don't need in that day to have more quiet time for myself and not be out in the world, you do that and you make those adjustments and stuff like that. But it's definitely an energy. It's definitely yeah, it's just a feeling. Like I just have that feeling and I always know like, and again, it's not like I'm sitting around walking around and giving people predictions all day, every day. It's just a general knowing of like the people and the humans that I'm interactive with and I talk to on a regular basis. Like I'm with them. I have 70 clients, give or take, right now, and I'm with them. And it's crazy. I have about 18 competing in the next 6 weeks, give or take. And as tired as I am, I'm also hyper energized because they're in their final stages. That's like a reverberation. We're vibing off each other. They're vibing off each other in my Instagram groups. Like it's kind of like ping pong, right? So just like it's great energy, you can also have that bad energy, and you know what that feels like too. When you walk into a room and you're like, ooh, what was just said? Like, ew, and then you like want to leave. Like you just know.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're more receptive and more like vulnerable to that, good or bad, where somebody else, they may be vulnerable to it, but they don't know that they're vulnerable to it?
Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, I go to a lot of music events, music festivals, because I love like Eric Pritz is one of my favorite DJs, and we usually go to a lot of events that he's at. He's like the only one we'll fly for. So it's interesting because even though those weekends are so taxing and like physical to my body, because bodybuilding is completely different than standing and dancing and being on your feet for like multiple hours in a clip. And as taxing as they are physically to my body, when I come back from weekends like that, I've seen friends or other people who are like-minded and have the same, oh my God, this vibe. It's, every music generates a different vibration for the people that it attracts. I come back and I'm like, wow, I'm so recharged. I'm so ready to like give this back. So, it's everybody is different in the way that they receive or they download, some people are the criers. Some people are the ones that are the isolators that are, you have that one friend that you're like, sorry, I'm back. And you're like, don't even apologize. You are doing you. Like you are who you are. So yeah.
When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here just for a second. Let me tell you about Smoking Gun Coffee. They're a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to produce a quality coffee at an affordable price. They only buy coffee from small coffee farmers around the world with a cup score of at least 85. Each batch is roasted to order for maximum freshness. They also donate a large portion of their proceeds to organizations that help local communities, veterans, first responders, or you can donate to the foundation of your choice at the checkout by going to www.smokingguncoffee.com. That's SMOKIN Gun Coffee.
And is there any like capacity for you, or have you ever tried to like block it out, or do you have that capacity to like shut it off?
It's interesting. You don't walk around. It's called being open and being closed. Like you don't walk around all day. Like I don't walk around open all day. Where I'm like I'm here to like when I say open, it's like the energy goes back and forth. Like there's an element of closed offness that you have to have when you have this ability to be able to concentrate, to be able to stay in place, to be able to work with what you're working with, and not be affected by that randomness that could come at you. So yes, you can close it off if you're practice with this and you've been doing this a hot minute and you learn how to work with these skill sets. I had to read a lot of books on tape or listen to a lot of books on tape and how to do that because being still wasn't my thing. I was like over active kid. I had to be in sports. I had to be in aftercare, all of it. And it was like, that is part of the reason why I truly think that my intuition became as strong as it did because I was doing a lot of sports and I was alone a lot of the time, and especially as an only child. So in the younger years, I think you block it off because you're not sure what it is. And how could you be right about this? How could you know this information? How could you see something and then see something and then live it or be around when that situation goes down, right? So you're just kind of in this second guessing all the while you're still trying to like live a regular life and like being like in public. So as a kid, I think you block it off more, depending on your upbringing, of course. And now it's just more of like, I'm turning it off right now. I have to go do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, you can and you can't,
Yeah. And when you say like see, does that like physically seeing things like,
Yeah, like
among
so some people see spirits, like actual physical spirits. I see a lot, like I call it like the conveyor belt. Like I'll see like a conveyor belt, when a grocery list and you have like your grocery store and you have a conveyor belt of groceries that goes by. What it feels like to me and my visuals, because again, when you see things in the psychic world, a symbol for like a mountain in my world, in my eyes, isn't necessarily symbolic of a mountain per se. And somebody else might have a mountain as a symbol in their world, but it's not a mountain either. It's like their code. So everybody's code is essentially different, like a different download, which is why there's really no books on this. Like, here's how to be a psychic 101. Like, plus, I'm sure if they were written, they'd probably be burned at the stakes. But it is what it is. What was the original question? Now I'm going off on a tangent.
like could you physically, like you
See,
mentioned, seeing things?
so it's like what I feel and how I envision it to be, it's like a conveyor belt of like information. A great way, the closest thing I've been able to see it in an actual movie is, I don't know if you've seen, what is it, Interstellar? Have you seen Interstellar?
Is that the one where they like travel in time, and then, or is that a different one?
No, it's again, I still don't really understand the movie because I haven't really paid attention to it in the normal person way. I'm looking at other things. So it's the one that's in like Mars or outer space. I believe that there's an element of time travel, but there's a scene in that movie where they're in this like big library. It's almost like this three-dimensional library in space that is like holographic. And one of the characters pulls like a memory out in that timeline. It's that moment in time. But time is happening all at once. So it's the same concept of like what I can see. I can see a situation and it evolve into infinite different how it's going to go down essentially if I really concentrated on that situation. Now, does it mean that they're all going to happen? No, it's all the possibilities, like very similar to that butterfly effect. So the best way to describe it for me is more of like a conveyor belt of like, whoa, yeah, we can't do that. We need to switch this up right now. We need to, whatever it is for a client program or whatever the case may be. So but everybody's visions are different. Some people, get their messages physically from an actual spirit that lives in their home or comes through or whatever.
And is there any on your end, is there any like sense of responsibility? Like if you see, this possible future, you said, just
Yeah.
not even talking like giving someone else advice, but for yourself, is it like, how should I best go about to either have this or not have this happen?
Exactly. And it's weird. And that's the one thing, like whatever I get downloaded from spirit, from the universe, from source, from, there's so many words that are interchangeable. I'm simply the vessel of like the information. When I'm doing a physical, like actual psychic medium reading with somebody and we're channeling a spirit and I'm getting information that's being shared to the client in front of me. I'm simply just regurgitating what they're saying. There's been times I've had readings where like they're speaking Spanish to me and I'm just repeating the Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. And I would be repeating it in Spanish and they're like, tearing up and I'm like, oh, this is what it is. In the beginning I would try to fight that and be like, that can't be right. Why would I see a tree? Right. But as you just start to be that vessel. So it's not that I can predict, or I'm sorry, it's not that what I predict can change anything. I just happen to see it so many different ways that it's one of those that even though you have this information, you're not going to walk through life going, okay, what if it did? You just have to live, and I don't do self readings. A lot of psychics don't do self readings where it's like, okay, what's going to occur in the situation. It's the one area of my life that it's kind of ironic that is the most free flowing and intuitive sense about me. If I were to try to control that, I think that I would not be okay. Like, I think I would lose it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people I think would be it's like knowing the weird thing about knowing what's going to happen, and
Mhm.
not wanting it to happen or wanting it to happen and trying to control it. It's almost impossible to do. But
Totally.
um, what was I
And
gonna say?
it's also okay. Like there's times that I know, like, and I'm not even kidding you, or I know that I have to go through the motions on this task in front of me. Even like let's use a job application, for example, right? Again, I'm not job hunting, full disclaimer. I'm not going anywhere with my job. But it's like that you're applying to this job and you know that you're not getting this job or you even want this job, but energetically you have to put that energy out there to get to reverberate and to regenerate that money and income to come back to you. So it's kind of the same thing with that. You have to really like the intention has to be a certain way. And even if you know potentially that it's not the job you want and where you're going with it, it's one step closer to the job that I'm supposed to have, or one more connection that I was supposed to meet. But it's all connected. Even if we think, oh, how did that flat tire have anything to do with this job? You have no idea. You have no idea.
Yeah,
So it's just like accept it.
yeah, it is weird, having kind of experienced how like the whatever you want to call it, the bigger purpose, this thing happens. You don't really understand why it's happening at the time. And then later on, sometimes you don't really ever get to know why, but later on, you kind of see that. And it's like, it just makes things so mysterious and so like
For sure.
crazy.
It's crazy. Like, I mean, the level of synchronicity, the more that you start to be aware to it, the more synchronicity you're going to see. It's insane. I mean, I forget like how in depth this is sometimes until I hang out with what I consider like a normal person who's just like, yeah, want to go get food? Yeah, let's go get food. Let's talk about nothing. Like, I need that today. Let's just do it. And they're like, wow, we just saw 4 license plates with 444 on it. And I'm like, yeah, that 44 is my number, whatever, or whatever the time is, or whatever the set number that we listen to, we pause it right at 44, whatever the case may be. And so, it's cool, but the message of all of this is that we're all highly intuitive. And if you gave yourself space to really sit into that and really lean into it, you would be pleasantly surprised with what you would hear, what you would feel, and what you would just know to be right. And it's right for you. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff for sure. To kind of hop into a completely different and in some ways different realm, different topic, fitness.
My favorite.
How did you get into this world?
Oh man. I was an athlete growing up. So I played soccer, I played lacrosse, I ran winter track. And then I just was really obsessed with my dad's bodybuilding magazines back in the 90s. I just thought it was so incredibly cool that humans took themselves to that place. You did this, gear aside, you took yourself there, and that's effing cool. That is so cool. No one can take that from you. No one can supplement that hard work with anything that you had done to get to that point. And to me, I think that was just the coolest thing at such a young age. And I didn't want to be a bodybuilder necessarily at 13, but I knew it's something I wanted to do. And after college, I was like, I joined a gym, joined Lifetime. It's pretty big here. It's open 24 hours. I could really do something with my time. And that's just kind of when fitness started. And graduated college with a double degree in marketing and management from the University of Colorado, and went right to LA to work in fitness. And that was that. That's the start. And here I am 14 years later.
Yeah. And what made you want to move to LA?
Again, just the calling. I'm originally from New Jersey. I had repetitive dreams about Colorado. When I went to college, I actually went to Boston University first because I got the most money to go there. And I was like, well, it's a really great school. It's almost an Ivy League. It's the first day in the dorms. I was like, I'm allergic to this place. Ugh. I came home, I visited friends, went back, applied to the University of Colorado, the University of Vermont halfway through because they accepted mid-year transfers. I'm a snowboarder also and a skier, so I wanted to be somewhere I could do that. Got into both and was just like, no, I'm going to Colorado. So I had visions of Colorado repetitively, just over and over again, nonstop. I would be on the websites, looking at their pictures of Breckenridge and Copper Mountain like a weirdo. Moved here and then started having dreams about California, and then did the same thing. After I graduated college, just was like, well, packed my car, drove out at 5 a.m., got there by 10 p.m. and that was it.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Moving obviously from one location that you don't really know anything about, don't know anybody, I guess that, really would probably make it easier to do it the second time.
Yeah. I look at those bold moves in my life and I didn't really put much planning into it. It was, again, very spirit led, very, very universe. Hey, this is what you're doing. Oh, okay. I just always thought if you're going to if you wanted to live in these places, you might as well do it before you potentially get married, have children, have a family. And also, why not? I think we spend so much time living the idea of not me or you necessarily, but people spend so much time living out the dreams and ideas of other people, other people's perception of you. And then what? You do that and you're unhappy.
Yeah.
For what? Because you tried to make somebody else happy who's truly unhappy. What? So I just feel when it comes to chances like that, whether it's a job, a trip, endeavors, one being invited to be a dancer on a stage of a concert, whatever it is, do it. Just fucking do it.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
No, I think that's really good advice. So what was your, you moved to California, but what was your what was your kind of first initial experience like? Did it kind of match up to what you thought? Was there any, was there any weird things or any kind of like doubt or negativity around it, or was it just kind of good stuff?
So like when I first moved out there, I ended up working for Equinox. However, the issue with LA, which I didn't realize, is that the LA traffic, you can't live in a certain part of LA and commute. So that was news to me, right? So I ended up getting a job at Equinox, was trying to kill it. The commute was killing me, and I had to make a decision to work at a gym closer. So I ended up taking a job at Gold's Gym, which in my world was like a downgrade, but who the fuck am I? I'm a first year trainer, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be at Equinox, like ego driven decision. The universe was like, this isn't going to work, go to where you need to be. Okay. So I ended up going into Gold's Gym and just killing it. Became trainer of the month my first 2 months. I knocked this guy who had been in there for like 5 years. He was like the goat of the, I was like, yeah, old man. Like he was like older and I was like 21. Um, but yeah, so I would definitely say that would have been a little hiccup. It wasn't that I doubted my abilities necessarily. It was just like, man, this sucks. Like I'm trying to get busy and like I have like no money. I'm 21 and it's just like all of it. But again, it served in my world, it served a purpose of like work your ass off. You get what you put in. And because of that, 3 months later, I was actually promoted to fitness manager in the organization, smashed like the record at the company. The first 2 months, we broke the record at over $100,000 in sales. And like, I actually met my husband because of it, because he was the gym that was taking second. And we were at a team meeting of 12 of us. And I'm like, you're the second place. Okay. And then it was just like a battle for like the next 6 months.
That's awesome. So at that point, had you started bodybuilding? Had you started looking into it? Had you thought about it?
So I actually ended up having a bilateral hip surgery that year for hip dysplasia that I didn't know I had. So that was kind of like a little bit of a setback when it came to me wanting to compete. For me, I wanted to compete when I was ready. And at that point, I still hadn't had breast implants yet. I wanted to get them too. So after the year after I had my two hip surgeries and rehabbed myself back to normal, I then got my boobs done and then was ready to like officially commit. So I did a full year of like training after that. And I was training all the while, but not like for a show. And then it was like a full year and a half after that. I did like a prep. I called it the prep before the prep, and just did like a prep for a Vegas trip to see if I could do it, see if I liked it, see if I would, be a good compliant client. And I was, and that was it. And then the next year, 2017, is when it all began.
Gotcha. So, what kind of like, whenever you prep without having a show, like was there when you actually finally did prep for a show, what kind of differences did you experience? I guess just having maybe more of like a concrete objective. Hey, I have to step on, or, I don't have to, but I'm going to step on stage in this date, I only have a limited time. How does that differ from just doing it to almost like experiment with doing it?
It's interesting. I really treated that first prep. I will say this, like I was so neurotic about every little detail with that prep before the prep that it almost like, I don't want to say like set me up for failure, because like, I wasn't any less than in those other preps, but I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm paying money for this. Like, I got to make sure I can't look like an idiot. I'm trying to go to Vegas. Like, so I really did everything from, every single sup to the second, to the alarms being set, the food journal. I wanted to be as good as I could be, so that I knew if you're going on stage, if you're going to do this for a show, you have no choice. Like, you don't want that to be the reason why you worked harder. So I was really hard on myself that first prep, that I actually think the pre-prep, that I really think that the first prep was almost easier, because it was a non-negotiable. But that true first prep was definitely a little bit more, it was a little scary. My coach actually pushed back my show the first time, 2 weeks, or sorry, 2 weeks out, pushed my show back 6 weeks. And again, it's a blow to the ego, because you tell everybody and this, that, and the other, but it doesn't matter, because I wanted to bring my best. And, it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think it's, prep is such an interesting experience. I've never been through it, but just talking to people who have, it's such an interesting experience, because it's like you're pushing everything to the limits. You're pushing yourself physically when it comes to training, and when it comes to the food, pushing yourself definitely like emotionally, it feels like to certain limits, and to experiencing those things, especially, for somebody on their first one who, maybe didn't do a pre-prep, they're experiencing all this and having the added pressure of, having to get up on stage for the first time and be in front of people, and it's very, a very revealing, very probably self-conscious experience for a lot of people. So, it's amazing that like people want to actually do this sport, because it just takes, I feel like, so much out of you. But I mean, obviously it puts so much back in, but it just is so demanding.
No, for sure. And it's weird. I have a really great group of clients, especially because I feel like they're what I consider like they're competitors, but they're here for so much more than that. They're trying to find their best self in whatever capacity, work, wife, sister, whatever it is, and they're channeling it through their prep. And it's cool because I can relate to people in prep and competitor terms and personal training terms rather than like crying. That's not my jam usually. It's like I'd be like, here's some water. I don't know how, I can't, so this is like I'm in heaven because I get to work with these people that are trying to be their absolute best while under these type of conditions. And that's where you grow. That's where you see the biggest, craziest changes. And these people, as much as we care about their end result, what they look like on stage, because everything else is in alignment, they're going to do amazing on stage. And I always tell my clients, and you can ask any one of them, the stage will always be there. Your body will tell me when the date is. The stage will always be there. And that's that. None of my clients register for a show before 4 weeks out. They know how I feel about this. Come on. You can't control a medical situation, a death in the family, the universe challenging you, a deadline at work. You can't. And if they go into preps knowing that and feeling that, they're better off, and they feel like they have control of the situation rather than like, I have 16 days and 4 hours, and then yeah, that's gonna help you. Okay.
Yeah. Especially that first one, definitely, I feel like would be just a whole nother level.
Yeah, you need time.
Talking to a new client, somebody that you want to work with and they want to work with you, is there any level of you forever like using, your gift to like really see kind of what this person's true intentions are, or trying to figure out kind of like what this person's not potential in the sport maybe, but like potential is as far as like, giving themselves in like to the sport? Like, do you ever feel like that is almost like part of what you do as well?
Definitely. It's actually a great question you asked that, because that's kind of what I like tell people in like our consults and our initial conversations. Like, I'm not the trainer for everybody. Like if you want somebody who's going to be like, did you eat your vegetables? 100%, here's your money. I would pay you not to be my client at that point. Like, we are on two different playing fields here, right? So the people that I get, before I was hired by Team Elite Physique, my questionnaire for my private clients was like 6 or 7 pages long, up to when's your birthday? Do you want to know more about astrological signs? Like, like these are the precursor questions that I'm asking, because 9 times out of 10, a client who is with me or in my schedule or in my life or has came to me through this referral and so on and so forth has gone through something major or is about to go through something major. And I just happen to be there to be like, all right, we're doing this. So 100%, my entire client list and my business is intuitively ran, and my clients just get it. It's weird. They just like know. They're like, I saw your profile like 6 times and I just kept coming back to it. And like, I need to work with you. And I'm like, okay, come here. Let's do this. And that's it.
And do what do you feel like, especially like having so many people and probably kind of getting a good feel for different people, people that you work with specifically, can is there anything that like specifically points to success or points to longevity or points to commitment?
Definitely. It's just work ethic, 100%, plain and simple. You either have a work ethic or you just don't. You know what I mean? You can take somebody with the worst genetics, the worst eating habits, the worst trauma that they've ever been through. If they have a work ethic, they will get through this. And they could be, they don't even have to, they can have a penny to their name relative to somebody who has millions in the bank. If they have a work ethic and they're paired with the right coach and the right coaching style, they can go anywhere. And people really overcomplicate that. It's mind blowing to me. Like, I see it all the time. I'm like, oh, let me guess. You're 8 weeks and 7 days out. All right, next day. 8 weeks and 6 days out. Yep. Oh wait, 4 weeks out. We have a medical emergency now. Oh, she can't do it. Okay, you just see it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's almost like the prep is the same. It's just a different name. It's just the same thing. You're doing the same things. It's just a matter of, okay, we might have to extend it or, don't have
Exactly.
to extend it. It's just kind of, I never thought about it like that, but it's really,
For
you're
sure.
doing the same thing. It's just a matter of how much time is left before the stage.
Exactly. And that's what, like, I over communicate in the beginning. I say, listen, like, if you're really doing this to better yourself for whatever reason it is it physical, where you made fun of as a kid, were you overweight? What was it that we're overcoming? Let's get your mind right through the trauma of that first, versus like, oh, I'm doing this to get back at somebody. Well, that's never going to stick. So we got to fix your mind right. So you fix your mind right first. You get somebody eating whole, organic, nutritious foods. You practice self-love and going to the gym out of love for your body, not, oh, I gotta go there because I need to lose a millimeter on my waist. Like, no one's gonna stick with that. And you get them to the point where that's like autopilot. And then you're like, okay, you're 12 weeks out now. And they're like, really? Let's do it. And then it's just like game time,
Yeah.
but you can't possibly bring your best on stage if you're a nightmare on the inside. It's so some contraindicator, especially with like the people who bodybuild. Some of them will come soon, but it's okay. We're all works in progress. Not judging. It's your journey.
Yeah. And it seems like it's such like a holistic sport.
Exactly. And it's funny because like the dichotomy of that is like it's essentially a hobby, even at the pro level. Like, yeah, it's a hobby for most. Like most people are employed, most people work full time. Like unless you're the super, super elite at the top of the league, right? So something that's just a hobby, it requires literally everything in your life to be around it, and people, oh, balance this. I'm just going to leave this right here. Do you think anybody who started a company, who's a CEO of an organization, who overcame the odds of whatever it was that were against them, worked on it for 15 minutes a day, or were they obsessed with it? And do they do it every minute of every day and hardly sleep? That's the reality of it. And those are the people that do well, obsessed in a good way, obsessed with personal development and obsessed with bettering themselves, not the aesthetic part of it. As a result of them mastering that, the aesthetic will always follow.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people who don't have or haven't found their passion mistake, what balance is, because they think, I can't imagine working on something that hard, because everything that they work on is something else, that they have to work on, if somebody else told them they have to do it. So, having something that you're truly passionate about, it doesn't feel like you're pushing your limits. It doesn't feel like you're, giving yourself up to something. It doesn't feel like, it just feels like that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. And I love this quote where it's like, I'd rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for somebody else. And that's the truth. Like, I've never worked harder. I've never worked, or I wouldn't say slept less, but I've never had so much work in my day to do willingly, of course. Not like, oh, I gotta get to my, no, it's like, okay, this one's 6 weeks out. I gotta change this and this. I have people relying on me, and it's a different feeling than when you're just punching a clock and you're finishing a TPS report, we'll say. And it's that need is what gets me out of bed, like with before an alarm. Now it's like, that's awesome. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
waiting for my 3 that are competing this week. I'm like, all right, cool. This one's on East Coast time. Okay, cool. She's next. This one's in California time. Great. And all in order, like clockwork. And that's when that harmony comes. But yeah, it's find your passion. Just do whatever it is that you need to do to find your passion and run with it, because the money will always follow.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com.
I'm going to get choked up talking about this, but I have a client of mine that I had to push back her show, and we've been working together for 2 years, and it's just, we need more time. And I had to break this news to her, and I basically had to say, like, listen, it's not because of your lack of effort. It's not because of your lack of discipline. It's not because of anything, except we just need time. And I can send you on stage and you hate your pictures and be upset that we did this instead of extending it and really ensuring a first place win. And, it killed me, but she was receptive. She accepted it. She understood. And not only that, her message back to me was just like, it's crazy, Nikki. Like, I never thought everything I once knew about myself to be its truth is literally not truth. And I found this through bodybuilding. And I was like, that's it. That's the lesson. And now she's ready to win. Like, that was the transformative moment. So to your point about that, I feel like the clients that I work with, like, that's what I'm supposed to do for them. That's what I'm supposed to say. Hey, listen, it's okay to challenge this. It's okay to ask. It's okay to prioritize yourself as a mother and a wife, or before being a mother and a wife, because you need to pour from a full cup. And sometimes it just takes hearing that it's okay for it to be okay. You know, who made these rules? Like, what? You know, from the time we're supposed to go to work and bed, like, make your rules that work for you in your life and what you want to do, and everything else will align. It would be crazy. It would be, and that's the other thing. It's like, you keep people in chaos and turmoil all the time, and fear. It's only two emotions: love and fear. Everything comes from either love or fear. You know, depression, fear, you know, sadness, fear, love, you know, everything is from two emotions. And if you keep the world in a state of fear and a constant chaos, you have no time for people to actually connect. And connection is community. And community means, oh, we have a network. We're okay. We have a tribe. Like, that's what people did back in the day. How is it that we have such connectivity to every piece of equipment and technology and watches and this, but yet the most amount of disbursement and segregation, essentially? And I don't mean that from like a race standpoint. I mean it from like a germ standpoint, all these made up nonsense. What? It's just, it's crazy. But no, to your point, like, if could you imagine what the world would be like if more people, even 25% of the world, we don't even mean 50%, if 25% of the people did this, it would be a different vibration. And that's the other thing, like, working, I have a very greatly flexible schedule. I have in-person clients, I have FaceTime clients for posing, I have FaceTime clients for training, the ones that are in the elderly category, and my clients from pre-COVID. You know, I have office work to be done for my client updates, and like, I look at my schedule every Thursday for the week ahead, and I'm like, okay, where am I going to work? How can I channel like a different space of energy? And that has a really great sunlight in the morning. Like, this is the stuff I think of when I try to work, because if you do what you always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. And there's a period of stagnation during COVID. Granted, it was great to be home and forcibly home, and it was kind of weird and eerie, but that's not normal. We're not meant to do that. Look at every history, every civilization, every single one of them, and why they fell, and why the empires fell. You know, divide and conquer. That's it. He who wins writes history, and like, that's where it's headed. And when you want to look at it from a health and fitness standpoint, what is the common denominator that all these same people needed? Proper nutrition, proper sleep, proper vitamin D levels from the sun, and the cyclical and the circadian rhythm that they needed to have. Those are the things that kept humanity going. And now we're at a point where all of those things are literally disrupted because of the addition of modern day, whatever, technology, influence, social, I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, it's crazy.
All these things that are like old as we are, people are just like they think they're rediscovering them, you know, as like this new like alternative medicine, when in reality, like, those are the things that we should actually be focusing on the most.
Oh my God, it's like the basis. Like, I have a naturopath that I see every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on you know, timeline of events and travel schedule and stuff like that. You know, my acupuncturist, it all boils down to like the Chinese practices that were there for thousands and thousands of years. There's actually a really good book called The China Study, and it talks about like insulin sensitivities and like why the Asian culture can eat a certain way versus other cultures, and And it's because there's like there's no like break in their culture. There's no outside infiltration. There's no watering down of the culture, if you will, or the melting pot of America. It's lineage, hundreds of thousands of years of China.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like, you can't outsmart nature. Nature will always win.
Yeah, it is very interesting, you know, especially in America, where there's so many, you know, different types of people with different backgrounds, different, you know, races, ethnicities, all this and this and this. And then, you know, we try to, from so many different perspectives, whether it be laws or whether it be, you know, medications or whether it be some like recommendations, you know, we try to like fit everybody into this one box. And when, you know, in reality, like, you know, you can't, you know, the keto diet's not the best for everybody. It might work for somebody. The carnivore is not the best for everybody because they come from this part of the world where it wasn't, you know, what wasn't prevalent. Or I think just going to like what you're kind of talking about is like understanding yourself more, like figuring out, sitting down, be, you know, in a quiet place, and just, you know, focusing on focusing on your surroundings, and just, you know, being with yourself, I think is very important.
100%. And that's the other thing. Like, with my clients, they all know, like, sure, you have a meal plan, and sure, you have a training program that I created for you based on your pictures of submission and this, that, and the other. but you're in your body 24/7. Don't fudge your numbers when you check them in. Give me feedback. Are you hungry? What days are you hungry? Are you craving sweet? Are you craving salty? This is an interactive process. And you need to know your body as much as I need to know my own programs. So the only way that it's going to work is with your feedback and my programming. And then from there you adjust and you pivot and you start to get in, okay, that's progress. And, so many people are so quick to like, oh my God, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat this. Were you really hungry or were you thirsty? Were you sleep deprived? Was it 2 o'clock and your cortisol levels dropped and you're needing caffeine? Like, what is it? Just stop for a second. And that's why it's so important that when my clients, when they do their check-ins, I read everything. I want them to check in with details. Oh, okay, cool. I saw that the last 3 Tuesdays you cheated. What's going on Tuesdays? Oh, you have dinner at your mom's house. Okay, is there emotional baggage there? Do we need to cancel dinner? These are the questions that I want to know about so that we can find the pattern to support the life that you want to live without really changing an upheaval. Like, we're going to do all this that's different. Well, the client's not going to stick with that. It's like little by little. And yeah, no, part of bodybuilding and part of, fitness is knowing what your body can handle, what it can handle, and having a really subjective, okay, this is data. I wrote this down. This is what I feel. That's a feeling. Let's cross-reference it. It's like, it doesn't need to be complicated, but everybody,
nowadays, like, there's so much potential to use these things that we have now for good and use technology for good if we just do it, if we allow ourselves to understand and if we get taught like it's important to understand and it's important to, this is why we need to eat well, because it's directly related to our gut microbiome, and that's directly related to our brain health and cancer risk, and
100%.
All these things that if we just allow them to be good, like life could just be good if we just allow it to be good.
Right. And that's a hard concept for people. Some people don't want to feel good. Some people like I call it like it's essentially the matrix. Like, we all have different roles in this particular physical world. Some people are healers, some people are, givers and martyrs. Like, we all have a different role. And there's some people, and I hate to say this, that are in their conveyor belt of just dysfunction or self-inflicted BS, or I can't change. Well, you're right. Whether you can or you can't, or whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. It's your thoughts are powerful. And there's some people that are just in that role. And, I only really started to process this when I had a big client roster and was like, why are some people paying for a service and not using it? Like, I'm like, I can't understand this. This is weird. You're wasting my time, and time is money. So like, what? It's not personal. That's them. Well, if I have a coach, then it's not me that's at fault. Okay, you're right. You're absolutely right, but I'm not your coach either. So you got to take, especially in a coaching role, you have to take the good with the bad, and you just accept it for what it is and don't take it personally and move on. But we all have the power to be really, really successful, and it starts with the belief, just the belief of it. Do you think you're successful? People would stutter. I'm like, how? The answer is yes. You know what I mean? Do you love yourself? Okay, good. Well, today's lesson is we're going to coffee and we're going to talk. Like, let's start there.
Yeah. I think it's just so bizarre. Like, at what point do we become, or do we start to feel those things? Like, is it society that does it? Is it on purpose? Is it, if we look back, 100,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago, when we're just sitting in caves, was everybody so much different as far as just their mentality? And like, it just makes me wonder, like, when did all this stuff, and is it something, is it a byproduct, or is it kind of is it the main thing? Is it like, is this how we're supposed to be, or based on all these things that we've said about, or is this just kind of a mistake? Like, is our culture, is our society like causing all these mistakes, or is it the reason, is that what they're pushing for?
Yeah, I think it's an intentional information overload. I think it's intentional, again, divide and conquer. If you can get people that disagree and you get people that are not on the same page, like, there's nothing more powerful than a group of, of people together. That's why people come for the church all the time. I'm not particularly religious myself, but they come for the church all the time. Like, what, can't people just worship in peace, whether it's, Muslim or Christianity or Judaism? Like, just that's a threat. You have common like the common interests of the same group of people in numbers, that, that's powerful. Like that
Yeah.
grows over time. And whether it's, a Boy Scouts or, whatever club, or religion, it's a community of people. And when you have that, and you don't need big government and you don't need to rely on them for things, that's a threat. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely a, intentional situation.
For sure. And I look forward to putting this on social media and getting shadow banned for saying all this.
Oh my God, I already am. It's fine. People will be like, I can't find your profile. I'm like, don't even worry about it. I can't either. And it's my phone.
That's hilarious. Oh yeah. But no, it was really good getting to talk to you. I appreciate you coming on here and kind of sharing a little bit about yourself. It was really good getting to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, I didn't know what direction we were going, but you know what? I'm here for it. And I love impromptu emails. I love impromptu interviews. Instead of getting an email before where it's like, we're going to talk about this. I'm like, I don't read it anyway. Let's go.